Hello everyone, and welcome to a trash summary of Week 21 the Overwatch League, plus the Community MVP results from this week. The primary highlights from this week were the shock dominating Philly, Shanghai extending their lead at the top of the standings, and Washington eliminating Boston in the first summer showdown match. Also, apologies for this coming out late this week, I've been pretty busy again, and I'm sorry. Anyways, moving on to the first match. The Chengdu Hunters were defeated by the Guangzhou Charge, 1-3. Chengdu were left at 4 wins and 13 losses, with a map ratio of -16, and Guangzhou were left at 12 wins and 6 losses, with a map ratio of +3. Both teams will play again later in the week. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Krong got the 3 points with his percentage of 85.7, Happy got the 2 points with his percentage of 60.7, and Eileen got the 1 point with his percentage of 32.1. Moving on to the next match of the week. The Seoul Dynasty were defeated by the Shanghai Dragons 1-3. Seoul's record was left at 6 wins and 7 losses with a map ratio of -8, while Shanghai were left at 17 wins and 2 losses with a map ratio of +32. Both teams will play again the next day. And now moving on to the community MVP votes. Fleta got the 3 points with his percentage of 65.5, Void got the 2 points with his percentage of 58.6, and Lip got the 1 point with his percentage of 44.8. On to the last Asia match of day 1. The Hangzhou Spark were defeated by the London Spitfire 0-3. The Spark were left at 7 wins and 9 losses with a map ratio of -7, while the Spitfire were left at 6 wins and 7 losses with a map ratio of -6, and after all the matches in the Asia region had been completed, they were left in 13th in the standings overall. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Glister got the 3 points with his percentage of 63, Bernard got the 2 points with his percentage of 51.9, and Hiley got the 1 point with his percentage of 40.7. Moving on to the first NA matches of the week. The Florida Mayhem defeated the Houston Outlaws 3-2. This left Florida's record at 11 wins and 5 losses with a map ratio of +10, and after all the matches of the week had been completed, they were left 6th in the standings. While Houston were left at 6 wins and 11 losses with a map ratio of -11, and after all the matches of the weekend had been completed, they were left 14th on the standings. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Dante got the 3 points with his percentage of 78.3, Yaki got the 2 points with his percentage of 65.2, and Gargoyle got the 1 point with his percentage of 60.9. Moving on to the next match. The Dallas Fuel defeated the Toronto Defiant 3-0. This left the Fuel's record at 5 wins and 8 losses with a map ratio of -7, and they were left 15th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been completed, and Toronto were left at 5 wins and 10 losses with a map ratio of -9, and they were left 16th after the rest of the matches had been completed. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Doha got the 3 points, with his percentage of 88.5. Onigod got the 2 points with his percentage of 61.5, and Note got the 1 point with his percentage of 34.6. Moving on to the next match of the week. The Vancouver Titans defeated the Boston Uprising 3-0. This left the Titans' record at 4 wins and 7 losses with a map ratio of -9, but they would play again later this week. And Boston were left at 2 wins and 13 losses with a map ratio of -31, and they were left 20th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Shockwave got the 3 points with his percentage of 96, Dalton got the 2 points with his percentage of 68, and KSA got the 1 point with his percentage of 36. Moving on to the next match. The Washington Justice were defeated by the Gladiators 1-3. This left the Justice record at 3 wins and 13 losses with a map ratio of -24. They were left 19th in the standings after the rest of the matches in the weekend had been completed, while the Gladiators were left at 6 wins and 6 losses with a map ratio of 0, and they were left 12th after the rest of the matches had been completed. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Space got the 3 points with his percentage of 67.9, Birdring got the 2 points with his percentage of 53.6, and Chupa got the 1 point with his percentage of 50. Moving on to the next match of the week. The Shanghai Dragons defeated the Hangzhou Spark 3-0. This left Shanghai's record at 18 wins and 2 losses with a map ratio of +35, and after all the matches of the weekend had been played, they were left in first. while Hangzhou were left at 7 wins and 10 losses with a map ratio of -10, and they were left 11th in the standings after all the matches had been played. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Lip got the 3 points with his percentage of 77.8, Fleta got the 2 points with his percentage of 66.7, and Void got the 1 point with his percentage of 55.6. Moving on to the next match. Chengdu Hunters were defeated by the Seoul Dynasty 0-3. This left Chengdu's record at 4 wins and 14 losses with a map ratio of -19, and they were left 18th in the standings after the rest of the matches were played. And Seoul were left at 7 wins and 7 losses with a map ratio of -5, and they were left 10th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Prophet got the 3 points with his percentage of 76.2, Michelle got the 2 points with his percentage of 52.4, and Fitz got the 1 point with his percentage of 33.3. Moving on to the next match of the week. The New York Excelsior were defeated by the Guangzhou Charge 2-3. This left the Excelsior's record at 12 wins and 5 losses with a map ratio of +21. They were left 5th in the standings after the rest of the matches were played. And Guangzhou were left at 13 wins and 6 losses with a map ratio of +4, and they were left 4th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. Moving on to the MVP votes. Krongle got the 3 points with his percentage of 70.8, Haxal got the 2 points with his percentage of 66.7, and Happy got the 1 point with his percentage of 45.8. Moving on to the next match. The Los Angeles Valiant were defeated by the Paris Eternal 1-3. This left the Valiant's record at 8 wins and 7 losses with a map ratio of -1, and they were left 8th in the standings after the rest of the matches were played, while Paris were left at 9 wins and 6 losses with a map ratio of +5, and they were left 7th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Sparkle got the 3 points with his percentage of 91.7, Xe got the 2 points with his percentage of 45.8, and Shax got the 1 point with his percentage of 37.5. Moving on to the next match of the weekend. The Atlanta Reign defeated the Vancouver Titans 3-0. This left the Reign's record at 7 wins and 6 losses with a map ratio of +9, and they were left 9th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. While Vancouver were left at 4 wins and 8 losses with a map ratio of -12, and they were left 17th in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Edison got the 3 points with his percentage of 65.2, Baby Ray got the 2 points with his percentage of 60.9, and Ursula got the 1 point with his percentage of 34.8. Moving on to the next match. The Philadelphia Fusion were defeated by the San Francisco Shock 0-3. This left the Fusion's record at 15 wins and 2 losses with a map ratio of +27, and they were left 2nd in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played, while the Shock were left at 14 wins and 2 losses with a map ratio of +24, and they were left 3rd in the standings after the rest of the matches had been played. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Arns got the 3 point with his percentage of 88.9, Joy Hyobin got the 2 points with his percentage of 47.9, and Striker got the 1 point with his percentage of 38.2. Moving on to the 12th versus 13th seeded match for the Summer Showdown. The Washington Justice defeated Boston 3-1. The standings and rankings aren't there because it doesn't directly affect their standings and rankings unless they make it to the Final Four. Moving on to the Overwatch League standings. The Shanghai Dragons are in 1st, staying there. Philadelphia are in 2nd, also staying there, while the Shock remain in 3rd. Guangzhou are up 1 spot to 4th, while the Excelsior are down 1 spot to 5th. Mayhem remain in 6th, Eternal remain in 7th, and the Valiant remain in 8th, while the Reign are up 1 spot, and the Dynasty are up 1 spot, with the Reign being up 1 spot to 9th, and the Dynasty up 1 spot to 10th. The Hangzhou Spark are down 2 spots to 11th, while the Gladiators are up 1 spot to 12th. The Spitfire are up 1 spot to 13th, while the Outlaws are down 2 spots to 14th. The Fuel are up 1 spot to 15th, and the Defiant are down 1 spot to 16th. The Titans are up 1 spot to 17th, the Hunters are down 1 spot to 18th, while the Justice remain in 19th, and the Uprising remain in 20th. Moving on to the standings in the community MVP votes. Carpe remains in 1st on 38 points, While Fleta remains in second on 36 points, catching up to Carpe, Lip has gone up 3 spots to third on 23 points, while Yaki remains in fourth on 22. Glister is in fifth on 21 points, up 3 spots, while Nero is down 3 spots to 6th. KSP is down 3 spots to 6th, and Dante is up 2 spots to 6th, as they are all on 20 points. Dronak is down 3 spots to 9th on 19 points, while Krong is new to the top 10 on 19 points. Moving on to the top 10 for support, damage, and tank. If you want to pause the video and read the top 10 tank, support, and damage plays to yourself, pause the video and read it now. Thank you to the 39 people who voted in this week's community MVP poll. Thank you to everyone who's watched the video, and please subscribe for more.